Yo, what's up? It's Julian, aka Delaluz, and in this one we're gonna talk about two ideas actually. First of all is the idea of progress, how to see progress, how to identify progress, and identifying good ideas. As always, I want to invite you to work on some creative project as you listen. Maybe you have this on your phone, have it on your second monitor. Just kind of let it roll over you. It's not that deep, but it's always good to start working on projects since starting a project is always the hardest part. Progress. Yeah, progress. I started to think about this topic because oftentimes in my own work, be it at the piano, DJing, or writing music, I kind of had a feeling like I was stepping in place. I wasn't moving anywhere. I was just doing the same thing over and over and over again. And what I started to realize at some point was that the progress I was looking for is not writing a hit single. That's not really progress. It's some kind of progress for sure, but it's just a huge step, and there's so many little steps in between that we tend to overlook. I'll take the example of learning a new piece at the piano. Back in the day, I would think that I had made progress when I finished learning that piece of music. Once I got really good at it and I mastered it and it's just perfect, if that even happens at all, that's when I would progress. And you can imagine what that would lead to. A lot of frustration. A lot of frustration with the process, with my perceived lack of progress, with my stepping in place. So I started to kind of break it down, you know. First, I wanted to play the whole piece, and then I started to say, okay, what if I learn the first 4 bars? So the first part of the song. And then when I finish that and I practice that and I get really good at that, I have made progress. That already feels a lot better than trying to learn the whole thing and only being satisfied once you learn the whole thing. Then I broke it down even further and I went into singular bars. So I took an even smaller part. And once I learned that bar and I got proficient, I felt like I was progressing. And once I kind of started thinking in this way, it opened my mind to perceiving even smaller steps in the progression. For example, the point I got to was that I would feel like I was progressing and I was having success when I would not play a mistake. Now, this is maybe a bit hard to follow if you don't play an instrument yourself. But the matter of the fact is, when you play a mistake, your hands kind of remember the mistake and you are more likely to make that mistake again in the future. So if you are practicing really slowly and you're really paying attention to what you're doing, you can play a phrase and stop right before you make a mistake. There's this kind of feeling that is just a very fast cognition that tells you that you don't know what's going to happen next or what comes next. And if you catch that feeling, which happens really quickly, you can stop before making that mistake. Now, this is obviously an interesting technique and awareness to develop in and of itself, no matter what you do, to be really attentive to what you're doing right now. And then when you start noticing that you can refrain from making mistakes and refocus and focus on doing things properly, you will feel like you're having success in that moment. And that's not something that happens after a month when your goal is to learn a whole song. It's not something that happens after 3 days when you're trying to learn 4 bars. It's something that can happen every 5 minutes. And when you define your success and your progress by these really small steps, then you're going to have the feeling of being successful all the time while you're practicing or playing or honing your craft. Unfortunately, I can't lead you through what progress would look like in every single creative endeavor. But if you just start building up that awareness and just being curious about where the little steps are in your artwork, where you improve, where you can bring a little more awareness, a little more skill, a little more innovation, you're going to be a lot more happy and you're going to be a lot more motivated to actually work on your projects. The topic of identifying good ideas is actually quite similar to what I just talked about. When you are only celebrating writing a whole new piece, you are celebrating, first of all, very infrequently, and you are missing out on a lot of details and a lot of learnings you're making along the way. When you look at your creative process in detail and you really watch what you're doing, you will realize that you're innovating all the time. For example, when I'm writing a melody, I usually come up with a rough structure with a melodic sketch, and then I will start filling in details. And if I'm not quite happy with the details, I will create another melody or change the details, and I will just try out different things and different ideas until I find something that excites me. And that's a very good indicator that you have just discovered and made up a new way of doing things. And if you then bring that awareness into that moment that you have innovated, that you are having a new idea right now, you can identify, first of all, when the process happens, and you can identify when you're having a good idea. Why is that of an advantage when you identify having a good idea? Most creative projects, at least in the first years of your work, are just 1 or 2 really good ideas. You really don't need that much more. When you listen to most music or look at most art, there's like one central idea, one innovation that kind of is being expressed through that piece of art, and everything else is more or less supporting that idea. I'm a firm believer that you can have at most 2 or 3 really good innovative ideas per painting, per song, per story. Otherwise, it kind of gets convoluted. It's just, I'm sure you've seen a movie or seen an artwork where you just feel like there's too much going on. It doesn't have a centralizing element. It doesn't have a focal point. And this is something you can prevent by realizing when you have your first really good idea of a song and then just trying to build and expand and elaborate on that idea instead of creating new ideas and new ideas and new ideas, thinking that that's going to make your artwork better. As with the awareness of progress, you're going to have to inquire a little bit into your creative process. You're going to have to look at how you do things. You're probably going to realize pretty quickly from now on when you have too many ideas going on in any creative projects, and can then decide on one of the ideas to make them the centralizing idea of that project, and just try to really explore the details and the boundaries of that idea, really trying to innovate, expand, twist the idea to present it as well as you can. As always, thanks for being here. Leave a comment, leave a like, it helps me out, and I'll catch you in the next one.